Some of us are outwardly successful, but inwardly feel unhappy and living a life lacking in purpose and meaning. The Necktie and the Jaguar by Carl Greer can help you discover what's important to you and how to go for it. For more information or to purchase the book, visit carlgreer.com. That's CARLGREER.com. Welcome to Expedition Self on OMTimes Radio with lifelong learner, entrepreneur, and creator of the worlds of Expedition Self, Sam Parrotto. Sam shares 4 decades of studying, guiding, and teaching how to go inside so we can build an incredibly powerful, dynamic, and validating relationship with the self. Expedition Self is laced with stellar, unexpected insights about what it means to be human. Listen now and ignite your self-development process with Sam Parrotto.
Well, hello and welcome to this week on Expedition Self. Oh my gosh, I'm going to be sharing about the 10 best ways to create open and loving relationships during a holiday today. And I'm excited about this. I haven't created a top 10 list in a while, and they're kind of fun to create because, you know, it helps me coalesce my own thoughts about like what really matters or what I would want to focus on. So I'm thinking you might find yourself while you're listening having your own ideas for your own top 10 lists that come from what I talk about. So make sure you have a pencil and a piece of paper close so that you can capture it and not lose those really juicy creative thoughts that come to you while you're sharing this hour with me. Okay, well, you know, your intention, it makes all the difference, right? Because without intention, then things just land where they land. And I know we always want to be open to the organic and the unplanned for sure, but intention, it lays the groundwork, right? It sets the tone for more to happen. And this is, it's important because when there are dynamics and often weighty dynamics that enter a space without intention, those dynamics will carry the day. It's, you know, it's kind of like walking into your living room and having an elephant and a couple zebras and a lion and some wildebeest pacing around looking for an outlet. So if you don't give those wild animals a way to channel their power and their wants and their needs, well, then you're going to have your own version of Jumanji at the holiday. And I'm thinking you all can relate to that. So before we dive in, this is a call-in show. And if you're listening with me live on my Wednesday time slot from 5 to 6 Eastern Standard Time, then I want to encourage you to call in and share your holiday intentions today. Or you can talk about a moment when your holiday intention didn't get met, or the thing you're most anxious about coming into the holiday with. So the number is 202-570-7057. I would love to hear something from your world. Okay, so this idea of intention is the first one on the list. Create an intention that allows for people to open their hearts. You can certainly tag on other elements to your intention, but you want to be careful that your intention doesn't morph into a set of expectations that now feel contrived, right? This is where you're going to want to get very clear about your needs and your past experiences and maybe the disappointments you felt, the stuff that's coming up for you around the holiday, because if it all stays in the unconscious realm, then your intention, gosh, it will have its own wild animals on the loose quality. So I think I should come clean, especially because of the time of year it is. I don't like Thanksgiving. It never felt loving. It didn't feel magical. Cooking for it seemed like more of a chore than anything. The food never seemed to come out hot enough. The conversation, it didn't deepen my sense of relationship. And it felt like people just sat around and drank, watched TV. And to me, it was like an entire day wasted being together in a way that felt like barely being together, other than it, of course, being like a day off from school and the buildup of family coming. Oh, yeah, right. And the turkey stuffing and cranberry sauce sandwiches made from the leftovers. Yeah, I like that too. So, so what did I want? And some of you might be over there going, "Oh, she doesn't like Thanksgiving." Well, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I would have wanted. I wanted a time when the family actually connected more deeply. I would have wanted everyone joining in the feast creating, and I would have wanted the day to be used to talk about important things happening for people and how they felt about them, and to really spend time and energy paying attention. And although I appreciate watching sports, I would have wanted to play them. Now, I'm not very athletic, but it seems to me that that would have been a really fun way to bond. I know some families have these traditions where they gather around an activity, and gosh, that always seemed like it would be the best time to me. I've hinted to some people that I'd like to be invited to their Thanksgiving, but I haven't gotten anyone yet who's sent the invitation, the ones that do those activities. So, as an adult, I did try to create more of this with those who gathered. And I always got closer to my vision when people who weren't in my family came to visit. No surprise there, because they saw themselves as guests and really choosing to be there, not entitled or locked into how it had always gone. So I bring up an important point with intention, and that has to do with how other people show up to your event. So your intention should be inclusive of how each of your gatherers look upon your event. In my case, I hosted mostly my husband's family at the time, so they had an idea or a history around this holiday, and that's pretty much what carried the day. So for your intention, you'll want to give yourself some room, some processing time to dredge up your feelings and your disappointments and your hopes and your resentments and all of what's there and really, really claim it as yours, right? You don't want to put it on anybody else. If you have any place where you feel that victim consciousness I talked about last week, then you're going to want to work extra hard on clearing that space and seeing what you can have as an intention that allows for love and that allows for connection and for abundance. One of my favorite intentions is around wanting to create a space where people's truth finds an opening to be heard. You can see when I describe my relationship to Thanksgiving that when I boil it all down, it was missing truth, mine and others, right? So this is one that allows me to keep opening up my heart and also honoring my own truth. Another intention, as an example, I want to create a space where people can actually feel the love in the room. Those are some examples. Maybe you have one that's coming up. So it's kind of a vision and an intention and a hope and a dream all rolled into one. But it has your power attached to it. And now this isn't power to dominate and control it so it goes your way. No. This is the power to hold the space, to bring something to it, to know that you're the source and creator of what's being offered and given. And so, yeah, it takes some practice, because that controlling and dominating part that's trying to get us what we want, it's always lurking, right? Because it's attached to whatever you thought and felt before. Remember my description of Thanksgivings. Well, that's the energy that backs up my dominance, right? That's behind it, like a little engine, right? And it wants to control things, so it goes the way I want, so I'll feel better. Intention has to have oxygen, big, wide open oxygen to work. And dominance and control tend to kind of suck the oxygen out of the room. So I'm interested. Maybe you'd like to call in and tell me what your intention for your holiday is. I would love to hear it. So, all right. This brings me to number 2, numero deux, right? Uno, dos. There we go. Forgot my Spanish there for a minute. On the top 10 list, which is ask people what they're needing from the gathering. If you've spent all of this time thinking about what's true for you and what you're needing, then you'd want to extend that same benefit to them. And again, we're trying to lean away from control and domination. So inviting people to share their truth and their wants and their past experience, this will bring a more collaborative time for everyone. So you can do this before the holiday, or as people are there and hanging out, and you're in that beginning chat time. That would sound something like this. I was thinking about how I feel about the holiday and realized I had a ton of stuff about it. And it made me wonder about how it's gone for you. What's your favorite thing about it? And if you could have it go differently, what would you do instead? Or what would you do more of? Being interested in their world about it, their thoughts, their hidden things that they don't necessarily share with everyone. You have an opportunity to be the one who questions for that and explores that. You can invite people to come towards your intention by being interested in how it's gone for them and what they might find intriguing or interesting or delightful or fulfilling. Now remember, if the environment or the event hasn't created emotional safety for them before, then they actually might be reluctant to share anything with you. But that tells you a lot, doesn't it? Because you're the creator of this gathering. Whether you're the one providing the space for it, the location, the geography, or whether you're a guest, you still get to be the source of the creation of it. So if it's not safe for people emotionally, like they hold back or they're reluctant to share, it means you're starting from a place of just making it safe. And this means anything they say is allowed with no rebuttal, just appreciation and understanding, right? Just receiving it. The key is to keep being open and curious and interested about what it is they're wanting, and sharing your intention and vision and checking out with them how that lands for them, right? It starts in my case, right? I don't really like Thanksgiving. How do you feel about it? Did you like yours? What were your favorite ones when you were growing up? What made them special, right? I want to play football on Thanksgiving, not because I'm good at it or I've ever played it. So the question is that of interest to others? And if it's not football, then what might be an activity that everyone would willingly partake in? Each holiday, it's a building block in an overall vision of what you want for you and what others want and need. I don't know, I think about wanting to do this activity. When I think about developing relationship, it always includes talking directly about thoughts and feelings. It also I feel like it's important to share in the doing of life together, the helping each other, the, working in the kitchen, or the saying, hey, I'm over here, throw me the ball. There's just something to me about that whole experience that gives us an opportunity to bring our social relationship onto another level. It also lends itself to giving you stuff to talk about afterwards. Like, oh, remember when I took the ball and I wasn't thinking about how it was going to land for you, So it gives us more fodder to bring into the conversation. All right. So let's talk about number 3. So number 3 is put love into the food. I want to tell you a little bit about my relationship with lettuce. Now, I like all kinds of lettuce, micro lettuces. I like the extra little things on the side like endive and radicchio. And I believe it knows, hold on to yourself, that I'm grateful to it. I talk to it in my mind and I say, thank you for being willing to be in my salad. And I know that for some of you, this might sound a bit crazy, but I really believe that food knows when it's loved and when it's put together from a place of gratitude and appreciation. But the problem with holiday feasting is a lot of times it's put together in like on a race, like you're at rapid fire out of sometimes even obligation or a burden, right? Stressful. People aren't holding the makers and servers in a light that truly celebrates the effort and gift being brought. I think, I'd ask you to look like the food itself is being taken for granted or expected, or the effort is more about getting people fed than it is about celebrating the bounty of life and the way life is shared through the energy that food provides for us. And you recognizing, if you're the one cooking, that loving those ingredients, like I love my lettuce, is a big part of putting love into your food. You see, noticing where your heart is feeling burdened or weighed down rather than generous and expansive around the feast. The food is an expression of this. So it's better to serve, yes, this is what I'm saying, it's better to serve 10 bowls of cereal with the kind of love and generosity I'm describing than it is to serve a giant feast from a stress-filled, overtaxed, gotta get the food on the table because people are expecting it of me kind of place. I'm convinced that my lettuce has a different flavor for people because it's washed and torn with love and gratitude. Okay, well, I'm going to come back and talk some more about this food, putting love in our food after break.
A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
OMTimes magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organisation, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. Connect at omtimes.com. OMTimes, creating a more conscious lifestyle.
My name is Victor Furman. Some call me The Voice. I've always been fascinated with human nature, spirituality, science, and the crossroads at which they meet. Join me Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio, and we'll explore these topics and so much more on Destination Unlimited.
COVID-19, brought to you by CDC and the Ad Council.
If you're feeling increasingly lonely right now, you're not alone. It's totally normal. Even though we may not be able to get together in person, connecting virtually with friends and family still gives you a chance to interact with people and may help raise your spirits. Join a virtual book club, set up group text chats, or online video coffee breaks with coworkers.
Find more self-care and coping tips at coping-19.org.
All right, we are back. You're listening to Expedition Self, and I am sharing, this is Sam Parrotto, and I'm sharing my top 10 list for how to make a holiday open and loving. And before we went to break, I was talking about how I love my lettuce when I make my salads and why I feel like it has a different feel. But we're on item number 3, which has to do with making sure that you have love with your food. So, the thing about my lettuce is I do recognize its beauty and its importance in my life and the nourishment that it provides. Seriously, like try it this year with just one of the dishes you're going to serve. Bring that sense of attention and consciousness to it and see if you can taste the difference. But, the real message about number 3, about putting love in the food, is really to make sure that you are feeling love for yourself around making that food or receiving what's being served. Where is your heart? What are you able to bring of that heart? And also being willing to adjust or change things so that the heart is fully heard, right? So that love is shared really through the food. To say it in a different way, if you're not good, then it's going to come through the feasting. And you can show up for yourself by being honest about it and putting words on it and allowing yourself the room to find options that match up with what's going on in your heart. If you don't have love happening inside of you, then the food can't be experienced in any different way. All right, don't forget, you can call in and share some of your holiday go-to places at 202-570-7057. So the fourth way of creating an open, loving space is spend time thinking about what's going on for each person who will be showing up or you'll be surrounded by, and find empathy for them. All the ones I've mentioned so far about getting yourself in the space to make the time amazing. And this one, it goes a step further. It's kind of like cleaning house. You'd actually spend some time thinking about the people who are coming. What's life like for them right now? What challenges are they facing? What is coming up for them that might require more of who they are than they've needed before? What are they wanting in life? Are there past moments you've been present for that may be triggered by your gathering? And what's the nature of your relationship with them? Again, you can't do this if you're hurrying, right? Can't do it if you're like trying to slap it all together because it's pressure building on you. So this is the moment when you want to really question some of your conclusions, the ones that might include judgments or assessments about who they are and why they are the way they are. You want to look at places where you don't have an open heart and notice what the deeper feelings may be. Remember, you're the source of this gathering space. When I say that, I don't mean that everybody's coming to your house. I'm saying you are the source. You have the ability to craft and construct a space that does something different than just the standard default. And so the state of your heart will have a ton to do with how it goes. So it's important that you think about this and that you think about the state of their heart as it is interwoven, right, with the state of yours. And you want to appreciate their life path no matter where they are in it. So I also want to mention that most of us, I don't know, I'm not sure whether you're going to argue with this, but I think most of us are judgmental. You know, the person who doesn't help with the dishes, the person who doesn't write a thank you note, the person who burps at the dinner table and doesn't say, excuse me, the person who, well, the list can go on and on. Manners, responsibilities, social decorum, these become the reasons we close our hearts a lot of times during the holidays. You know, that person who takes too many mashed potatoes and doesn't leave enough for the other people at the end of the table. You know, I'm pretty sure you know what I'm talking about. Number 4 on my top 10 list is a time to clear the cobwebs from all that critiquing. Because really, we focus on the manners and the behaviors when we can't really get to the human aspects of being together. See, the mind has to have some place to go. I talk about this in a lot of my shows, that the mind is like a computer. So if you don't give it something else to do that's more meaty and rich and juicy and heart connecting, it's got to go somewhere. So it goes on the most obvious things to pick on. You know, it's almost like the psyche does have to find a way to connect. So it connects on the petty details of behavior because it can't get to the real sense of being with one another. So this is what you're charged with, is recognizing where real connection is made and being willing to work around the specific manners and appropriate behaviors to get there and to clear this out so you're not coming in loaded up. See, that's the thing. Most of us are loaded up with each other or unconscious. So way number 4 is an opportunity to look closely at that and get real about it and then move it out of the driver's seat so we don't have it crash the party. So we don't have 3 more elephants walk in to the middle of the room. You want to be the one who is courageous enough. You want to be the stand for the event, to care about the load that's being brought to it, and to feel and practice with the intention you've brought to it. One of these things about the big load that's being brought by people is that you want to try to avoid going for success because this adds to the expectation. Remember, you're creating from wanting to add more room for people to create a place where the heart can vibrate more fully. So layering your need for success on it kind of works against you. I know you want it to feel the way you want it to feel, just like I do, but all these little slivers, like individual pie pieces, they have something to do with how much that actually happens. All of that thought and feeling and need and expectation is working in the background for you and everyone else. The more cleaned off and conscious and self-aware you can get, well, the more likely it is that your space will be open and provide opportunity to deepen and build that relationship. I hope you're starting to get this idea that you're up to something that's pretty important. It's pretty big. So the next 6 ways of creating an open and loving holiday have to do with what you do when you're actually present. And the first one is, well, it's actually the 5th one. Don't be afraid of stirring up old stuff or really be willing to deal with conflictual things that come up. Oh my. Well, I hope everybody's taking a big deep breath on this one because this one goes along with not talking about politics and religion, except that this one keeps people from actually feeling like they can be safe together. Let's talk about what this looks like to not be afraid of stirring up old stuff. It is so important to acknowledge that there is old stuff and to appreciate that someone is carrying it. So if that person brings up the old stuff, then we don't want to be afraid of it because that will have it come in with a much more intense push, right? Because it has to get over the intrinsic resistance that comes from not wanting to have conflict on a holiday event. So this is kind of dicey. I'm not saying a big conversation has to be had about the old stuff. I'm sorry, I'm dealing with a bit of a cough this week, which is why I'm clearing my throat. But anyway, but I'm also saying we don't have to stay all positive, because this doesn't provide for real, honest relationship. Now, I'm going to provide some specific ways to communicate during your holiday gathering later, but this point is really about don't be scared of conflict. Don't be scared of someone bringing past issues or stuff that seems a little controversial. The less you're afraid of this, the more choices you will have if and when it comes up, because you're not running from that fountain, right? The less you'll be defensive, the less you'll be protective. And this makes it more likely that the issues will slide in without having to get bigger and louder and more outrageous and more challenging. Remember, you're setting the parameters for the energy of the space. So when you're not afraid, then you won't spend your energy being on guard or watching out for it, or right, and trying to head off the stampede at the door. Now, that doesn't mean that other people won't be doing that, though. They might be afraid. It might not even look like fear. They might be defensive. This is another reason, though, why it's important that you're not afraid. Because if and when something shows up, then you'll want to have as many avenues available to you as possible to work with it. When we're afraid, our ability to think about new options, it kind of closes down on us. And so what happens then is fear starts triggering other people's fear. And when holidays happen and people come together, there's this kind of behind the scenes need that everyone is feeling, which has to do with needing to connect. So if the next piece of truth that wants to make it into that space happens to be something that's controversial, or happens to be something that is kind of, part of the being loaded up, then it's so important that it has a place to be heard in a way that other people can be more relaxed with it. So how do you allow for old stuff to enter in the space? I'm thinking you might be asking that question right now. The most important thing you can do is to acknowledge that it's real, that it does exist, to not be in denial about it, and recognize that it hasn't been dealt with, that it's a hard thing. Whatever can feel like the most truth for you and include your vulnerability, that's what you want to bring. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to bring your assessment or your prescription around it, or what you think or why, or how it got there. Like, you don't have to do a big analysis about the whole thing. You just have to acknowledge that it's there. It's simple. Like, I see it. I recognize it. It's real. See, remember, you always want to return to your stand for your original intention. So inside of that, the truth is what matters, at least in the one that I bring. People being safe to be who they are and where they are is what matters. And you are the one who's showing the elephants, lions, and giraffes, oh my, how to occupy the same space. Remember that when you are acknowledging something is real, sometimes it can cause someone else's truth to be invalidated. So this is the art about it all. The weaving, the crafting, the stitching together, the finding words to validate two perspectives that may seem like they contradict each other. I remember when that happened for you. It was a really difficult time. And I know, even though you don't probably think it's true, it was difficult for your cousin too. I just did a little role play there, right? It's when you're attempting to create safe space, it's important that everyone's experience is validated. Even if one person thinks their experience is more true than another, and not at the expense of each other. The second part of not being scared about it is to be able to ask questions or listen to what the person is saying. Now, it may be bad timing because you're right in the middle of the feast. So again, it could sound like, hey, I'd really like to hear more about this, but I'm not able to pay as much attention right now. Can we pick it up after dinner? Right now, in this time in our lives, we're struggling with being able to talk about the social and economic and environmental issues together. And the reason is because being right seems like the only way to hold your position. But really, we're scared. We feel so incredibly powerless. And you're more helpful if you understand this sense of fear and powerlessness and how it translates into righteousness and rage and indignation. You have to see it in yourself, right? If you want to help your family or community build and deepen relationship, then being able to handle conversation that's chocked full of all this supercharged emotional material is going to be a really important skill. And holidays are a great place to begin to work on it. So, this is where you can say things like, I really want us to allow each other to have our own truth. Or, I'm hoping you can hear that I'm interested in understanding what's happening for you, so we don't have to scream about it. Or, I know this is so charged, but I feel so strongly that we have to be able to talk through it. Now, certainly, there are some families and groups where people are so reactive that you can't really bring it out into the open. But you can say out loud, I sure want to find a place where we can be together, where we can let down our ideas and our beliefs and understand that we're all being pushed really hard against one side or the other. You keep standing and making room for everyone. And then there's a place where it doesn't have to feel so overwhelming. When someone is outraged, understanding and empathy goes a long way to settle those wild, crazed nerve endings looking for something to lash out at. I realize I'm talking about this as if this is what happens at holidays, is all this negativity or something. I think what I'm really trying to say is that the holiday presents an opportunity to get deeper in relationship. And most people focus on the positives. They try to be happy. They're always working to make the holiday space beautiful and warm. So I don't know that you can go to the next level without being prepared to run into these things that are controversial. So I guess I'm suggesting that you practice taking some risk, that you try to bring an honest acknowledgement to the interactions as they come up. My truth was actually missing in all those Thanksgivings. So I talk about it like it's what everyone else was doing, but it was really me who wasn't willing to take that risk. It might sound like, I know you see it very different than so-and-so, or I understand this last year, you found yourself on the outside looking in. So validation, non-judgment, standing in everyone's viewpoint is valid. We can find ways to connect and listen to one another. And although it might put you in the center of the conflict, that's what you're going to practice with if you're going to open and create a more loving space, even though it looks like it might be the opposite. All right. When we come back from break, we're going to go to number 6 and number 7 on the top 10 list.
The best of holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free. ascendinghearts.com.
Imagine yourself being transported to India, to the banks of the Ganga and an ashram in Rishikesh. Visualize that you are welcome to satsang with an American sannyasi who shares the wisdom of her guru. Your visualization has manifested. Join Sattvi Bhagawati Saraswati for inspiration and transformation every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio.
If I could be you,
and you could be me,
for just 1 hour,
if you could find a way
to get inside
each other's mind,
walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
We've all felt left out. And for some, that feeling lasts more than a moment. We can change that. Learn how at belongingbeginswithus.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Well, hello, you're back. This is Sam Parrotto, and you're listening to Expedition Self. We are going over the top 10 list of ways to make holidays loving and open. And I am at number 6 and number 7. So if you've listened to any of my other shows, this is probably not going to sound so new, but it had to go into the list. And that is validate what people are saying, put their words in your words. And the second, which is number 7, is avoid wrong making. So I talked a little bit about the art of being in conversation from a different place. Well, this validation thing is also an art. But one of the ways that you can really bring something transformational is to put in your words what other people's words are saying. To be willing to use your voice time, your airtime, to speak what you know someone else is trying to share. It illuminates, right? It brings a bigger light. It shows someone that you're processing what's being said, that listening is really happening. And when you connect it with no wrong making, it's just so powerful. So, all right, what do I mean by no wrong making? Well, it's a very big idea because we humans have a tendency to always want to make something right or wrong or good or bad. It's like it gets put inside of a bucket and then everything that comes from it is now coated in a forever tint of this is a good thing or this is a bad thing. So when we talk about no wrong making, it ranges from those manners and behaviors I talked about all the way to the motives and the background belief systems that run our every action. It takes the case that, this is important, that every person is on their own divine mission to self-actualize, to become more of their capacity to be, and to be confused and distort things and to make life difficult for themselves and others. It's the place where we look at a lifetime and appreciate it totally for the lessons it's providing. And we accept that the hurts and the suffering are part of this lifetime, that all of the feelings and the way we handle those feelings are an expression of this journey, this mission that I talk about. So when we work to avoid wrong making, we're taking in the idea that someone is working through something always. So what this also means is that any language or action that lays blame or tries to find someone to blame is included in their learnings. We don't have to get all hooked up in there. And boy, do we get hooked up in there. I know I do, right? Just because someone else is wrapped around the axle about anything. And blame usually goes with reactivity, and suffering usually produces victim consciousness. It's loaded with its own wrong-making. But this is why our stand to not making things wrong, to not buy into the blame game, but rather to keep looking at the entirety of the person's work in life. The person trying to find their way through their inner conflicts. The stuff that doesn't gel well or make sense. This is why it's so important. Because when we can commit to not making wrong, and then our validating through our own words can actually alter people's listening, so much more is made possible. I'm hoping that as I say this, you can remember moments when someone actually provided this for you. I cannot say enough about our willingness to wrong make. If you're trying to bring people together for a holiday and you want it, you really truly mean it, I want it to be open and loving, then honing your no wrong making skills is an essential element of that outcome. And it's really hard to do when the person or situation where you're trying to avoid wrong making is doing a ton of wrong making. It seeps in, I can tell you. I work with this all the time. So the other thing I want to say about this is that it's not about being positive or Pollyannish. I'm not sure how to say that actually. Or only wanting to see the good in everything. No, the no wrong making commitment is coming simply from an acknowledgement that life is about more than an issue or a power dynamic or even about getting what we want. It's about learning and growing and experimenting and being at risk. When we're trying to open up new ways for people to connect, understanding this really gives a platform for every person's experience in life to be valid. And for you to move away from using blame as a way to cope with the feelings. And it helps us begin to herd those wild, unwanted feeling experiences into a space where they can be talked about and worked with. And yes, I think herding is part of creating a great holiday, not in a controlling way, but in a way that keeps inviting and encouraging and modeling and engaging. So the idea that we're validating, we're willing to put into words what other people are saying, and we're not wrong making when we do it. It's an entirely new place to gather from and bring something different. I'm going to take a breath here. So there is bad news. Everyone isn't going to go along with it. So it does mean you're practicing and you're taking that risk I talk about, and you're like trying on how to bring this perspective, the interactions that are going to undoubtedly happen during your holiday. So we've got all this history together that causes us to be loaded up. And now we've got all these world events going on that make it even more loaded space. So I am not saying you sit down at the table and say, I know everyone's on a different page about the political scene right now, so let's dive in. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that you can listen to what's happening with people and you can encourage sharing and you can be the one who helps bring a new way of speaking about each person's experience as it comes up. If it comes up, right? And there may be a moment when someone in the family needs to talk about their life because an uncle says, "How's it going at school?" And you watch the nephew kind of shrink away as they say, okay. And you can open that up and support the person talking about how much anxiety they feel and the stress of the social stuff. And then you can hear the uncle saying, "It's no big deal. You'll get through it." Pat on the back. And then you can say, "Well, I actually think it is a big deal." And it's what the nephew is dealing with right now. And now you have a new conversation, even if for a moment. And your intention was in the background as you brought that into that time and that place. So, all right, are you sitting there thinking, this sounds like a lot of work, not a holiday? How do I get to enjoy my holiday if I'm trying to bring this intention and this much consciousness? Well, it is work. It is work. But isn't it the most important work? It's the bricklaying for future holidays and building healthy spaces for us all to come together to find common ground and to move into these next phases of our evolution as human beings. It's bumpy out there. Yes, it is. So making the holiday gathering spaces emotionally more fulfilling and safe, it is the place to start from. You're on the right track if you want open and loving. It's the time when we expect to be together. What better time to begin to recreate then? So this is a good time to throw in number 8. Share memories that honor the quality of relationship. You know how you can go to family gatherings and the stories that are repeated over and over often make fun of one of the family members and they've kind of learned to roll with it and it's all now looks like it's funny. Or there's this story that was really difficult for people, but because something good came out of it, it's like on rinse and repeat. Well, you can think about sharing new stories, new moments of life. You can ask others to share them. You can bring this new level of remembrance to the conversation and give people an opportunity to react in new ways. Because you see, while the repeat stories validate the community and what it stands for, usually the loaded up stuff is wrapped in it too. I also notice that when people gather who have done it a lot of times, right, that they're used to each other, there's this habitual way of relating and joking around and trying to connect that's literally redone over and over. And this perpetuates what's already locked in the brain because we're such creatures of habit individually. And we collude to maintain this habit with others because it feels falsely safe or like it's a lower level safety. See, way number 8 gives us this chance to begin to rework that through a very new perspective. You can see yourself as a storyteller, someone who weaves pictures together that reminds people who they are and how they've worked together in the past. And you can also encourage other people to tell stories. Remember when that tree fell down in the backyard and everyone came over to help move it before the snow came? You see, we need stories to bind us together. We need to have the visual memory to rouse the emotions and bring them to the surface. We lose perspective by staying in the same routines, the same conversations, the same thinking. So stories that rework what's happening that doesn't support an open and loving get-together are a creative way, I didn't say that right, that do support an open and loving get-together are a creative way to begin a new tradition, to see the healing and change that every holiday is wanting. You may not see yourself as a storyteller. You may even feel like it's a bit contrived to think about shared experiences this way. But it is you building a bridge between the old and the new. And I think that's what this list is all about. How to build a bridge where you're the architect, the engineer, and the builder all rolled into one. Okay, so the last 2 ways for better holidays are about your communication and modeling it. And they are acknowledge people's power, even if their words aren't positive, and speak in I statements, I think, I feel, I experience. The first one, acknowledge people's power, has a ton to do with letting the positive and negative thing go. Instead, looking for where someone is speaking from their truth, even if it's a truth that doesn't seem like how you'd like them to share. If you're at a gathering and things are opening up, then you're likely to hear exchanges that are incredibly negative or incredibly positive. Either of those extremes will usually elicit a reaction from the listener. So you just want to acknowledge the source of what's being shared. I know it sounds like a huge thing, but what I'm struck by is how you notice that something was going on at all. Okay, that's a sentence that you might say. You see, if that person is sharing a story and it's really a negative statement on other people's actions, then your work is to find the essence of their heart in what's being shared. And that's what you speak into. In acknowledging their power, you're acknowledging that they have it, that it was present in some way, and you can see it and appreciate it. It's like drawing out the concentrated self in any story, and asking people to back away from those two opposing sides. Because the working in the middle between extreme positivity and extreme negativity, it makes more room for everyone to stay in the conversation. It lessens the potential for conflict, and it reinforces the source of any person's life, which is their power. Okay, so the words that go with this are I think, I feel, I experience. So that anything that's going on, you're putting in language that's all about you, that's experienced by you. And you're allowing true feeling to be put in words rather than thinking the feelings. I think, I feel, and I experience are simple ways to stay in a place where you are at the source of what you're bringing. And it gives you a communication framework to bring all of the other steps that I've talked about today. If you want to know more about that piece, you want to listen to my show on conscious communication, because I go a lot into I think, I feel, and I experience. Okay, let's run through the list one more time. Number 1, create an intention that allows for people to open their hearts. 2, ask people what they're needing from the gathering. 3, put love into the food. 4, spend time thinking about what's going on for each person showing up and find your empathy for them. 5, don't be afraid of stirring up old stuff or deal with things that come up. 6, validate what people are saying and put their words in your words. 7, avoid wrong-making. 8, share memories that honor the quality of relationship. 9, acknowledge people's power even if their words aren't positive. And 10 is speak in I statements, I think, I feel, and I experience. I hope you have an awesome holiday, you take the risk, and that my top 10 list gives you a way to bring something new to the gathering, and that your heart and your mind feel called to level up the entire experience for those you hold dear. I have a poem from Joy Harjo, and I'm going to get to be interviewing her live in a few weeks, and it's called Perhaps the World Ends Here. The world begins at a kitchen table. No matter what, we must eat to live. The gifts of earth are brought and prepared, set on the table. So it has been since creation, and it will go on. We chase chickens or dogs away from it. Babies teethe at the corners. They scrape their knees under it. It is here that children are given instructions on what it means to be human. We make men at it. We make women. At this table, we gossip, recall enemies, and the ghosts of lovers. Our dreams drink coffee with us as they put their arms around our children. They laugh with us at our poor falling down selves, and as we put ourselves back together once again at the table. This table has been a house in the rain, an umbrella in the sun. Wars have begun and ended at this table. It is a place to hide in the shadow of terror, a place to celebrate the terrible victory. We have given birth on this table and have prepared our parents for burial here. At this table, we sing with joy, with sorrow. We pray of suffering and remorse. We give thanks. Perhaps the world will end at the kitchen table while we are laughing and crying, eating of the last sweet bite. I was so excited to find this particular poem. I thought it perfectly suited today's show. Thank you so much for being with me on Expedition Self. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate very much that you are somebody who wants to create a new way of being in the world.